Hello everybody, welcome back to a brand new video. So I do want to say, after this, videos are going to stop for a little bit because I've lost access to my screen recorder, or I'm about to. So videos are going to be a bit dry for about a week at most. So expect videos to start showing up probably beginning of October, late September. So just to let you know, that's what's going on. So just want to warn you. But welcome to the Prime Minister Timeline Episode 1. This was suggested by you guys. I was going to do something called the second place the second place timeline, but somebody wanted this instead, so I'm doing this. Essentially, what if the United States went into a parliamentarian kind of system of government? So we're going to be looking at the years of 1788 through 1808. Starting in 1788, we have the 1788 federal election. Federalists would gain the majority for the first ever election, winning 37 seats, and Democratic Republicans would win 28 seats. In Washington, under an alliance with both parties, would be elected as the first Prime Minister of the United States. Going on to 1789, Washington would pass a tax on 30 different items at a tax rate of 8%, or something roughly along there. So yes, George Washington does increase taxes from nothing. And Washington would also sign the Judiciary Act of 1789, which would establish our judiciary system. And going on to 1790, Washington would sign the Residence Act, which would establish the borders of Washington, D.C. 1791, there is nothing noteworthy. 1792, Washington would sign the Postal Service Act, which would establish the U.S. Post Office. And Washington would also sign the Coinage Act, which would establish the U.S. Mint. We also have the 1792 federal election, where we would see the Democratic Republicans gain a majority, gaining 26 seats for a total of 54 seats, and the Federalists would have 51 seats, gaining 14 seats. So there would be an increased number of congressional or parliamentarian seats, so neither party is going to be losing seats. And Washington would be re-elected as Prime Minister, again under the alliance with both parties. Going on to 1793, Washington would sign the Fugitive Slave Act, which essentially means if you're a black person and if two people think you're a slave, they can just say that's it. You're essentially going into slavery, even if you're a free person. That's what that is. And the yellow fever epidemic would start throughout this year. Going on to 1794, the Whiskey Rebellion would occur, where a group of Revolutionary War veterans would garner a armed rebellion over the whiskey tax, and Washington would have to, beg militias to stop it. 1795, the 11th Amendment is ratified, which I just call this the judicial rules. I mean, it's like, conflicts between states or, someone with a conflict with the government, it goes to the Supreme Court, etc. 1796, the Panic of 1796 to 97 would occur, so kind of a economic recession would occur. We would also have the 1796 federal election. George Washington does not run for a third term. He essentially does not set a two-term tradition. He sets an 8-year tradition, considering that, due to the midterms, there's a possibility that the Prime Minister, could lose a vote of confidence, and his seat in the Parliament would have to go up for a special midterm election. And so the Federalists would gain seats. They would have 62 seats, gaining 11 seats, and the Democratic Republicans would lose 10 seats for 44 seats, meaning John Adams, Member of Parliament from Massachusetts, would be elected the second Prime Minister of the United States. Going on to 1797, the XYZ affair would occur, and due to this, John Adams would fail a vote of confidence, setting up the first special midterm election, or the first midterm federal election, 2 years after he was elected in 1798. In 1798, the quasi-war would begin, which would give a boost to Prime Minister Adams' poll numbers, making it to the point where he potentially couldn't lose. And Prime Minister Adams would also sign the Alien and Sedition Acts. If you talk shit about the government, you will be locked up, which made Adams unpopular. And we also have the 1798 federal election, 2 years after Adams was first elected due to him failing a vote of confidence. The Federalists would end up losing 3 seats to the Democratic Republicans. Federalists will still have a majority of seats. Federalists at 59 seats, the Democratic Republicans at 47 seats. Adams would be reelected as Prime Minister. Going on to 1799, the Friars Rebellion, another tax revolt that Adams would have to deal with. Going on to 1800, the Quasi-War would officially end under John Adams. In 1801, as soon as we get out of a war, we go into the First Barbary War as we fight Middle Eastern pirates. And so we have 1802, Prime Minister Adams would sign the Judiciary Act of 1802, which would reorganize our federal court system. And we also have the 1802 federal election, where the Democratic Republicans would make big gains, gaining a majority, defeating John Adams. The Democratic Republicans would gain 35 seats for a total of 82 seats, and the Federalists would win 60 seats, gaining 1 seat. So they don't lose any seats, however, they do just gain 1. But Thomas Jefferson is elected as the 3rd Prime Minister, after failing 2 times previously. In 1803, Prime Minister Jefferson would make the Louisiana Purchase, so that still happens IRL. 1804, there is nothing noteworthy. Jefferson does survive a vote of confidence, so there is no midterm special federal election. 1805, the First Barbary War does end in a U.S. victory, boosting Jefferson's approval ratings. 1806, federal election. The Democratic Republicans would gain seats in this election due to Jefferson's popularity, winning 84 seats for a total gaining at 2, and the Federalists would lose those 2 seats, and out of 58 seats, Jefferson would be reelected as Prime Minister. Going on 1807, Jefferson would sign the Embargo Act, which would drop his approval rating just a bit. And in 1808, Prime Minister Jefferson would sign the act banning the importation of slaves, which in reality was the first step into just banning slavery altogether. However, with the invention of the cotton gin, this kind of just became irrelevant. But Jefferson does sign the act banning the importation of slaves, kind of a bipartisan move, as Federalists would come together and help Jefferson make this pass, along with moderate Democratic Republicans. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is the Chaotic One saying, peace.